rare opportunity yesterday to experience what was a new thing for me. Probably a lot of people have been a part of it in some way or another, and that was a kind of a coach combine college tryout type of a thing.
Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast, 5-minute videos, 5 days a week.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and one of the interviews that I have coming up for the Leading Leaders Servant Leaders series for 2020 is a guy by the name of Mike Kiselak. Mike was a pro football player. And when you first think pro football player, you think, okay, yeah, pro football players, so what? I mean, not a name I know. We're not talking about like a Deion Sanders or Troy Aikman, whose name is like in lights, and every time you say it, you know exactly who it is and who they played for. But Mike Kiselak was in the dirt on his face most of the time. But he played pro football, meaning not just I played in high school, I played in college, but I made it all the way to the top. Then he made it to one of the top ranked teams in the country. In fact, a team that has won more than one Super Bowl. But I'll let him tell you that story. What was fascinating to me, though, was that as I walked around, these guys had on the players on the field had on their uniforms and their actual pads and helmets, and they were doing basically tryouts and scrimmages. And other guys were walking around with their credentials on, and it might say VIP, it might say agent, it might say scout, it might say coach. But as they were walking around the field, they were all looking at the various players and their capabilities. And as they wandered around the field, there were different units, as there always is in a football practice arena. There were some coaches working with linemen, and some coaches working with receivers, and some coaches working with quarterbacks, and some coaches working with DBs, and some coaches working with running backs and only wide receivers or tight ends. And as they were broken out in their little groups like that, I watched Coach Mike working with a group of guys, and his area of focus with this group of guys was very finite. Now, there's an impression for a lot of people that if you're great at one thing, you're great at everything. And while there's some truth to the fact that celebrity status will get you recognized across the board, that if you have celebrity status, you don't even have to be really, really good at what you do. You just have to be recognized as someone who should know. John Maxwell talks about this effect, this celebrity effect, this achievement effect, and how the public in general will look at someone who's accomplished great things and say, well, if they're an expert in this, they might as well be, or they should be, or we can expect them to be an expert in this as well. There's not always a valid reason to believe that, but it is the psychology of most people that if you're great at one thing, well, wow, you're just great. There is some truth to the fact that someone who is a disciplined athlete, a high achiever as an athlete, someone who's willing to, as they say in boxing, do the road work, someone who's willing to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and run those 6, 8, 10 miles so that their conditioning is at the top level, someone who's willing to hit the gym and stay there for 2 or 3 hours at a time, whether it's as a bodybuilder or a fitness instructor, someone who's willing to put in that kind of work, has the discipline, they have the character, they have the moral fiber, if you will, to stick at it, whatever it is. That may be an education, that may be a commitment to learning a new task, it may be being a coach or being an instructor. That kind of character, that kind of discipline means that that person's going to be a high achiever, whatever they set their mind to, because they've already got that quality of person in them. That's who they are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a pro football player can tell you everything there is about pro football. There are those who are great at being a tight end, like a Jason Witten, who's an all-pro tight end. And he has a great character, and he has great leadership skills, and he's a nice guy. But does it mean that he's a head coach? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. I'm not qualified to answer it, because I've never been a tight end, I've never been a pro football player, and I've never been a head coach. So my opinion on that is nothing but an opinion. But it was fascinating to watch Mike Kiselak out on the field with these guys, and he would grab the football and he would kind of twist it just a little bit in his hand. And what he was demonstrating to them was how you rest your hand on the ball when you snap, because he was a center. How you rest your hand on the ball makes the difference as to how it lands in the hand of the quarterback. Now, These are not guys who are pee-wee football players that are just learning. These are guys who are moving from college potentially into the NFL. That's why the agents and the scouts are there. These are guys who've already made it, many of them in a D1 college. They're already performing at an elite level. These are guys that know what they're doing. So why would they need a coach to just show them a little hand movement? Well, because while they may be making it through high school and into college, they haven't quite made it into the pros. And the broad field of college players to the narrow field of pro players who actually get on the field and start in a game, well, there's 32 starters every week in the NFL, not 32,000. And to take your performance level to that next level, you need to have someone who's been in that spot at that level with that intensity before. And I believe that same truth carries over into leadership. Now, here's what I don't mean by that. That only someone who's made millions of dollars, achieved millions of books sold, et cetera, has the insights that you need. While they will have some unique insights into, well, how did you become a bestseller? Okay, I'm not a bestseller yet. I can't answer that question yet. When I am, I will be glad to tell you. But the reality of passing on what you've actually done, passing on what you've actually learned, passing on what you've actually accomplished, well, that's why I do interviews. Because I get to hear from those who have done and those who have completed and those who have finished and those who have built. Because that's where we learn. As leaders, sometimes we need to step back and realize, in all honesty and humility, these are the things that I have accomplished. These are the things that I have done and done well. And I'm going to stay in my lane and I'm going to focus on those things that I have done well. What I have done well is communication. I build relationships really well. I've communicated and competed in communication at some of the highest levels in the world. And I'm okay with saying I am a great communicator. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm also very comfortable with saying there are communicators that I still learn to love to learn from. There are also things that I need to know about better communication and better organization and better persuasion skills. And I will continue to study those. And as I do, I will be delighted to share them with you. But if you're a leader of any capacity, a leader of any size group, I want to challenge you to find that area where your strength really shines, where you can look at the things that you've actually accomplished, that you've actually put your hands to and done yourself and say, I can help you with that area. I can lead you in that area. I can teach you in that area because that is an area of my core strength. If you'll stay in your lane, Mike isn't vying for the head coach job just yet for the Dallas Cowboys. That doesn't mean that he couldn't, but right now he's doing a great job coaching linemen who are playing center in college and want to move into the pros. And I bet his insight for them carries a lot of weight in their minds. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.